You guys are not going to believe this. You know how we've been talking about the massive AI boom for months now? Well, it just hit a whole new level. OpenAI just officially announced they've filed confidential paperwork for an IPO. That's right. The company behind ChatGPT is getting ready to head to the stock market. Can you imagine? It feels like just yesterday they were this scrappy lab in San Francisco, and now they're looking to go public. But here is the wild part: they aren't the only ones. We are seeing a race to reach that magical trillion-dollar valuation. OpenAI, Anthropic, and SpaceX are all gunning for it. Honestly, it's kind of funny because if you look at their actual sales compared to the trillion-dollar giants we already know, they're way lower, like 80 to 90% lower. It's hard to wrap your head around, right? They're aiming for the moon while still operating at a loss. It just makes you laugh at how crazy this market has become. Let's break down how we got here. Back in March, OpenAI raised a staggering $122 billion in private funding. That is an insane amount of money. Sam Altman and Greg Brockman are at the helm of this ship, but they're dealing with a structure that is just, well, it's complicated. See, the non-profit arm still owns about 25% of the company. That's worth over $200 billion today. And that non-profit board? They still hold the power to fire the executives and block big business decisions. I mean, can you imagine being an investor and knowing a non-profit board can just step in and hit the brakes? It's definitely a unique setup for a public company. And don't even get me started on the legal drama. You've probably heard about Elon Musk suing them, right? Well, that case actually got tossed out last month. A federal judge and a jury decided he waited way too long to file. So that's one headache off their plate. But they've still got plenty to deal with. They are under the microscope of state regulators in California and Delaware. Plus, they're dealing with heavy criticism from advocacy groups about everything from job losses to something they're calling AI psychosis, which has been linked to some pretty tragic situations. It's heavy stuff, and it's honestly sad to see the human cost being discussed alongside these massive financial numbers. But the real question is, why go public now? OpenAI is taking their time. They're being really strategic about the timing because they want to keep their flexibility as a private company for as long as it makes sense. They aren't in a rush. They're heading into that confidential review process with the SEC, which is basically like a black box of paperwork and back-and-forth negotiations. When you look at the future, industry analysts expect things to get even more interesting. There's chatter that the US government might even want to take a stake in these AI companies as they go public. It makes sense, right? If these companies are going to be as powerful as everyone thinks, the government is definitely going to want a seat at the table. It's also worth noting that they plan to stay a public benefit corporation. That basically means they have to balance their profits with their social impact mission. It's a bold move, but whether it'll satisfy the Wall Street crowd is anyone's guess. Some people think it could be a game changer for corporate governance, while others might just see it as a distraction from the bottom line. One thing is for sure, though. The sheer scale of this is mind-blowing. We're talking about companies like Anthropic, which was started by former OpenAI people, filing their own paperwork back in June. It's like a gold rush. Everyone is racing to see who can claim that trillion-dollar crown first. Will OpenAI actually pull it off? Maybe. Could the regulatory hurdles slow them down? They definitely might. Everything hinges on how the SEC views that weird non-profit-for-profit structure. It's a mess of legal strings, and it's going to be fascinating to watch how they untangle it all during this IPO process. I keep thinking about how far we've come since 2019. That was the year Saudi Aramco crossed that trillion-dollar mark, and coincidentally, it's the same year OpenAI officially created their for-profit wing. It's like the clock started ticking back then, and now we're finally seeing the result. If you're someone who follows the stock market, this is going to be the biggest show in town. But don't forget that these companies are still losing money. They're burning through cash to build the infrastructure that keeps ChatGPT running. It's a high-stakes gamble. They're betting that the future is going to be so big that these early losses won't even matter. It makes me wonder what your take is on all this. Do you think a company with such a unique, non-profit-heavy structure belongs on the public stock exchange? Or does it feel like they're trying to mix oil and water? It's a weird time to be watching the tech world, that's for sure. I feel like we're standing on the edge of something massive, and we're just watching it unfold in real time. If you want to stay updated on how this IPO shakes out, make sure you're keeping an eye on the news. This isn't going to be a quick process. It's going to be a long, drawn-out saga with probably a dozen more twists and turns before anyone rings the opening bell. I'm really curious to see how the public reacts to the filings once more details emerge. There's so much we still don't know. For now, all we can do is watch and wait to see if they can turn all that hype into real, sustainable value. If you found this breakdown helpful, do me a huge favor and hit that like button. It really helps the channel reach more people who are just as obsessed with the tech world as we are. And hey, if you have thoughts on the OpenAI IPO, drop a comment below. Are you bullish? Are you skeptical? I want to know what you're thinking about this whole situation. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to keep up with the latest tech news as it happens. We'll be right here covering every step of this journey, so stay tuned. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you in the next one.